Amara had never imagined that one evening at Lagos's most exclusive charity gala would change her life forever. As a scholarship student serving drinks to pay for her medical school fees, she was invisible to the wealthy elite swirling around her in designer gowns and tailored suits. The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the marble floor of the Eco-Atlantic ballroom as Amara balanced another tray of champagne flutes. Her worn black dress, borrowed from her roommate, felt like a costume among the sea of luxury. She had taken this catering job to pay for her final semester at the University of Lagos Medical School. Each naira earned bringing her closer to becoming the doctor her late mother had always dreamed she would be. "Careful with those glasses," barked Mrs. Adebayo, the head caterer, her voice sharp with anxiety. "One broken flute costs more than your monthly salary." Amara nodded, steadying her grip as she navigated through clusters of Nigeria's most powerful figures. Oil executives, tech moguls, and politicians laughed over deals worth millions while she served them drinks worth more than her weekly grocery budget. The irony wasn't lost on her that she, who survived on Gary and beans, was serving Dom Perignon to people who wouldn't notice if 100,000 naira fell from their pockets. Her eyes caught sight of the man everyone whispered about, Kemi Adeleke, the youngest billionaire in West Africa. At 32, he had built a tech empire that revolutionized mobile banking across the continent. His Adeleke enterprises touched everything from fintech to real estate, making him not just wealthy, but powerful enough to influence government policy. Yet standing there in his perfectly fitted black tuxedo, he looked lonely. While other men his age surrounded themselves with entourages, Kemi stood alone by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the Lagos lagoon. His dark eyes held a weariness that money clearly couldn't cure. Amara had read about him in business magazines, how he'd built his fortune from nothing after his parents died in a car crash, how he worked 18-hour days, how he'd never been married despite being Nigeria's most eligible bachelor. "Are you going to stare all night or serve the drinks?" Mrs. Adebayo's voice snapped her back to reality. Amara approached Kemi's circle of associates, her hands slightly trembling, as she offered champagne to the group of men discussing crude oil prices and currency fluctuations. She was reaching for an empty glass when someone bumped into her from behind. The tray tilted, and champagne cascaded over Kemi's pristine white shirt and expensive watch. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Amara gasped, her face burning with embarrassment. As every conversation around them stopped, the silence felt deafening. But instead of the anger she expected, Kemi simply smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him all evening. "It's just a shirt," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Accidents happen. Sir, I can pay for the cleaning or replacement. I just need some time to—" "You don't need to pay for anything." His eyes met hers, and for a moment, the crowded ballroom seemed to fade away. "What's your name?" "Amara. Amara Okafor." "Well, Amara Okafor, would you mind helping me find somewhere to clean this up? I have a feeling my associates can survive without me for a few minutes." Mrs. Adebayo appeared at her side instantly, her face flushed with panic. "Mr. Adeleke, sir, please accept our deepest apologies. This girl is new, she doesn't understand—" "Mrs. Adebayo, isn't it?" Kemi interrupted smoothly. "Your service tonight has been exceptional. Don't worry about this small incident." As they walked toward the service corridor, Amara couldn't help but notice how different Kemi was from the cold businessman image she'd seen in newspapers. Up close, she could see laugh lines around his eyes, the way his shoulders relaxed away from the crowd, how he moved with quiet confidence rather than arrogance. "You're not what I expected," she found herself saying, as they reached a small service room with a sink and cleaning supplies. "What did you expect?" He began unbuttoning his shirt, and Amara quickly turned away, her cheeks burning. Someone more, demanding, angry. Rich men usually are when staff make mistakes. "I was staff once too," he said quietly. "After my parents died, I washed dishes in a restaurant in Yaba to pay for university. The owner used to scream at us for the smallest mistakes. I swore I'd never treat anyone that way." Amara risked a glance back and saw him struggling with the champagne-soaked shirt. Without thinking, she stepped forward to help with the stubborn buttons near his collar. The proximity made her heart race. She could smell his cologne, feel the warmth radiating from his skin. "You're studying medicine," he said, and she froze. How did he know that? "The medical textbook in your bag," he explained with a slight smile. "Gray's Anatomy, final year." "Yes, sir. How did you—" "I notice things. It's how you survive in business." His voice was softer now, almost intimate in the small room. "Your hands are steady despite being nervous. You observe everything, good qualities in a future doctor." "I don't know if I'll make it through," she admitted, surprised by her own honesty. "The fees for my final semester. I'm working 3 jobs just to stay enrolled." Something shifted in his expression. "What's your specialty?" "Pediatric surgery. I want to work in rural areas where children don't have access to proper medical care." Noble calling. He was looking at her intently now, as if seeing something others missed. "The world needs more people like you." The door burst open suddenly, and Mrs. Adebayo stood there with a fresh shirt. "Sir, your driver brought this from your car." The spell was broken. Kemi took the shirt with a nod of thanks, and Amara realized she'd been standing there staring at his bare chest. Professional distance collapsed back into place as reality reasserted itself. He was a billionaire, she was hired help. "Thank you for your help, Amara," he said formally, though his eyes held warmth. "Perhaps we'll meet again." She doubted it, but nodded politely before following Mrs. Adebayo back to the service area. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of serving and cleaning, but Amara found herself glancing toward Kemi throughout the night. Every time she looked, he seemed to be watching her too, which was impossible. Men like him didn't notice girls like her. At midnight, as the last guests filed out and staff began breaking down the event, Amara collected her small payment and tips. It wasn't enough to cover her semester fees, but it would keep her afloat for another few weeks. She was gathering her things when a hotel manager approached. "Miss Okafor, Mr. Adelek asked me to give you this." The envelope contained more money than she'd ever seen at once, along with a business card and a note. "For your medical school fees. The world needs doctors like you. K.A." Amara's hands shook as she counted the bills. It was enough for her entire final semester, plus living expenses. But accepting charity from a stranger felt wrong, even if that stranger was kind enough to remember her name. She looked around for Kemi, but he'd already left. The business card listed his office address in Victoria Island. Tomorrow was Sunday, but she couldn't keep this money. She would return it first thing Monday morning. The Adeleke Enterprises building stretched 40 stories into the Lagos sky, its glass facade reflecting the Atlantic Ocean. Amara felt completely out of place in the marble lobby, wearing her best dress, a simple blue cotton that had cost her a week's food budget. The security guard looked at her skeptically until she showed Kemi's business card. "Mr. Adelek doesn't see people without appointments," the receptionist said curtly, her designer heels clicking as she walked back to her desk. "Please just tell him Amara Okafor is here, from the charity gala." After 20 minutes of waiting, during which Amara questioned her decision a dozen times, an elevator opened and Kemi stepped out. In his business suit, surrounded by his corporate environment, he looked every inch the powerful billionaire, but his smile was the same as Saturday night. "You came," he said, sounding pleased. "I can't accept this money." She held out the envelope, now sealed again. "It's too much." "I don't even know you, but I know you," he said quietly. "Come up to my office. We should talk properly." The executive floor was all glass and steel, with stunning views of Lagos stretching to the horizon. Kemi's office was surprisingly modest. No ostentatious displays of wealth, just clean lines and functional elegance. The walls held photographs of rural hospitals and schools, not awards or magazine covers. "Sit, please." He gestured to a comfortable chair across from his desk. "Can I get you something to drink? Coffee? Water?" "Mr. Adelek." "Kemi, please." "Kemi, I appreciate your generosity, but I can't take your money. I didn't ask for charity." "It's not charity." He leaned back in his chair, studying her face. "It's an investment." "I don't understand." "I've built my career on recognizing potential. You have something most people lack: genuine compassion, combined with intelligence and determination. Nigeria needs doctors like you, especially in underserved areas. You don't know anything about me. I know you work 3 jobs to pay for school while maintaining grades high enough for a surgical specialty. I know you chose pediatrics because you want to help children, not because it's profitable. I know you tried to pay for champagne stains on a shirt worth more than most people make in a month. He paused. I know you're here returning money you desperately need because your integrity matters more than your circumstances. Amara felt tears prick her eyes. No one had ever seen her so clearly. Let me propose something, Kemi continued. Accept the money as a loan, not a gift. Pay it back after you graduate and establish your practice. No interest, no deadline, just an investment in someone who will make a difference. Why would you do this for a stranger? Because strangers helped me when I had nothing. A restaurant owner gave me extra shifts. A professor tutored me for free. A bank manager approved a loan everyone said was too risky. His voice carried old gratitude. Success means nothing if you don't lift others up with you. The offer was reasonable, but something in his eyes made Amara hesitate. This felt like more than business philanthropy. There's no catch, no expectations. Just one request, have dinner with me tonight. Her heart skipped. That's not... I mean, we're from different worlds. Are we? We're both Nigerian, both lost our parents young, both worked our way through university, both believe in using our skills to help others. He stood and moved to the window. The only difference is timing and luck. Mr. Adelek, Kemi, I can't date someone I owe. Money to it changes things. Then don't owe me money. Consider it a scholarship from the Adeleki Foundation. We can set it up officially with paperwork and everything. You have a foundation? As of about 5 minutes ago. His grin was boyish, transforming his face completely. I've been thinking about starting one anyway. You'd be our first recipient. Despite herself, Amara laughed. You're serious about this dinner? Very serious. There's this place in Lekki that makes the best pepper soup in Lagos. Nothing fancy. Just good food and honest conversation. Everything in her practical mind said this was a terrible idea. Rich men didn't pursue poor women with pure intentions. There had to be an angle, some expectation she couldn't see. But looking at Kemi, she saw only sincerity and hope. One dinner, she said finally. To say thank you properly. One dinner, he agreed, though I reserve the right to hope for more. The restaurant was indeed nothing fancy, plastic chairs, fluorescent lights, and the most incredible aromas wafting from the kitchen. Kemi was clearly a regular. The owner greeted him like family and brought them steaming bowls of pepper soup without being asked. This doesn't seem like where billionaires usually eat, Amara observed, finally relaxing as she tasted the perfectly spiced broth. Billionaires usually eat terrible food in expensive restaurants while discussing business they could handle by email, Kemi replied. I prefer places where the food has soul. How do you do it? Stay normal despite all the success. Who says I'm normal? He laughed. I work too much, sleep too little, and haven't had a real conversation with anyone in months until Saturday. What happened Saturday was an accident. I spilled champagne on you. Best accident of my life. His eyes met hers across the small table. When did you last do something just because it made you happy? The question caught her off guard. I don't have time for happiness. There's always something that needs to be done. Studying, working, paying bills. That's existing, not living. Easy to say when you have money. I had money 5 years ago too, and I was miserable. Success without someone to share it with is just expensive loneliness. Something in his tone made her look at him more closely. You're lonely. Profoundly. He stirred his soup absently. Every woman I meet wants something. Access to my money, my connections, my lifestyle. They see the Forbes profile, not the person. What kind of person are you? Boring, probably. I like reading technical journals. I play chess badly. I collect vintage Afrobeat records. I dream about building hospitals in rural areas, but spend most of my time in board meetings talking about quarterly projections. That doesn't sound boring, that sounds real. What about you? What does Amara Okafor dream about when she's not working 3 jobs? Having a practice where I can treat children regardless of their family's ability to pay. Maybe starting a mobile clinic program for remote villages. She paused. Having enough money that I don't check my account balance before buying groceries. Both noble and practical. I like that. They talked until the restaurant began closing around them, about medicine and technology, about growing up in Lagos, about books and music and dreams for Nigeria's future. Kemi was nothing like the cold businessman from newspaper profiles. He was thoughtful and funny, passionate about social issues, and surprisingly well-informed about healthcare challenges in developing countries. "I should get you home," he said, as they stepped into the humid Lagos night. "I can take a bus." "Absolutely not. It's late, and I was raised better than that." His driver appeared with a sleek black Mercedes, and Amara felt the familiar discomfort of their different worlds reasserting itself. But Kemi must have sensed her mood, because he asked the driver to put down the partition, and spent the drive pointing out places where he'd worked as a student, the computer repair shop in Ikea, the tutoring center in Surulere, the restaurant in Yaba, where he'd washed dishes. "Success doesn't erase where you came from," he said quietly as they pulled up to her modest apartment building in Akoka. "It just gives you resources to help others climb the same mountain." "Thank you," she said, "for dinner, for the loan, for seeing me as more than just hired help. Thank you for reminding me that there's more to life than quarterly earnings reports." He walked her to the building entrance, and for a moment they stood awkwardly under the flickering security light. Amara found herself wanting to invite him up for tea, which was ridiculous. Her tiny room with its single bed and hot plate would horrify someone accustomed to luxury. "Can I see you again?" Kemi asked. "I don't know if that's wise." "Probably not, but I'd like to try anyway." Before she could overthink it, she stood on her toes and kissed his cheek. "Call me tomorrow." The next morning brought reality crashing back. Amara's roommate Funmi took one look at the business card on their shared table and nearly fainted. "Kemi Adeleke. The Kemi Adeleke. How did you... What did you... Oh my God. Amara, do you know who he is? He's just a man, Funmi. He's worth more than the GDP of some countries. He was on the cover of Forbes Africa last month. He dated that supermodel from South Africa and that actress from Hollywood." Funmi was scrolling frantically through her phone, showing pictures of Kemi at various red carpet events with stunning women on his arm. Amara's stomach sank. Of course there were other women. Men like him didn't stay single, they just rotated, through relationships with women who matched their lifestyle. What had felt like genuine connection was probably just novelty, the billionaire slumming with the poor medical student. "I'm being ridiculous," she told herself as she prepared for her hospital rotation. One dinner doesn't mean anything. But when her phone rang during lunch break, and Kemi's name appeared on the screen, her heart betrayed her by skipping several beats. "How's your day going, Dr. Okafor?" His voice was warm through the phone. "I'm not a doctor yet, and it's going fine, busy." "Too busy for dinner tomorrow? I know a place in Ikoyi that makes incredible jollof rice." "Kemi, I saw the photos online. You and all those women. I think I misunderstood what this is." A pause. "What photos?" "Forbes, society pages, red carpet events. You have a type, and I'm not it." "Amara, those are business events. Half those women are colleagues, or clients' daughters. The other half were arranged by my publicist, because apparently billionaires aren't supposed to show up alone to charity galas. The supermodel from Cape Town? Nomsa. We went to 3 events together for the cameras and spent the entire time discussing her foundation for underprivileged children. She's lovely, but there was no connection. She felt it too." "And the American actress?" "Zendaya's team called my publicist about an environmental initiative she's funding. We had one business dinner in LA that someone photographed, and suddenly, we were dating." He sighed. "I know how this looks, but I've been alone for a long time, Amara, until Saturday night. This is complicated. The best things usually are. Have dinner with me. Let me prove that Saturday wasn't just novelty or charity or whatever you're thinking." Against her better judgment, she found herself agreeing. The second dinner led to a third, then weekend lunches, then long phone calls that stretched past midnight. Kemi was unlike anyone she'd ever met, brilliant but humble, powerful but kind, wealthy but grounded. He remembered details about her studies, asked thoughtful questions about her work at the teaching hospital, and somehow made time in his impossibly busy schedule whenever she was free. "You know people are talking," her friend Aduni warned, as they studied together in the medical library. "Someone saw you having lunch with him at that fancy place in Victoria Island. The rumors are flying." "What kind of rumors?" "That you're his newest conquest. That he's paying your school fees in exchange for services." Amara's face burned with humiliation. She'd been naive to think they could spend time together without attracting attention. "Is it true about the school fees?" Aduni asked quietly. "He gave me a scholarship through his foundation. It's legitimate." "Amara, be careful. Men like him don't date girls like us without expecting something in return." But when Kemi picked her up that evening, for what had become their weekly dinner date, his face lit up with such genuine happiness that Aduni's warning seemed ridiculous. They drove to a quiet spot overlooking the lagoon and ate takeout while watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. "My board is pressuring me to find a wife," Kemi said suddenly, breaking their comfortable silence. Amara's stomach plummeted. "Oh, they think it would be good for my image. Stability, respectability, all that. That makes sense." Her voice sounded hollow to her own ears. "They have suggestions, of course. Daughters of other business leaders, women with the right connections and backgrounds." He turned to face her. "Women nothing like you. Kemi, I told them I'm not interested in their suggestions. You should reconsider. Marriage isn't about feelings for people in your position. It's about building dynasties, creating alliances." "Is that what you think? That I should marry someone I don't love for business reasons? I think you should marry someone who fits your world, someone who can handle the pressure and expectations. What if I want someone who challenges me to be better, someone who reminds me why success matters in the first place?" The conversation was heading somewhere dangerous. Amara could feel herself falling for him despite every rational objection, but she also knew how these stories ended. Rich men might play with poor women, but they married their equals. "We should head back," she said quietly. "Amara, what are we doing here?" "I don't know." "I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them, changing everything. Amara felt her heart break and soar simultaneously. "You can't," she whispered. "Too late." He kissed her then, soft and desperate, and she kissed him back, despite knowing it was hopeless. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This is impossible," she said. "Nothing worth having is easy. Your family will never accept me. Your business associates will think you've lost your mind. The media will tear me apart. Let me worry about that. Kemi, I can't be your rebellion against family expectations. I won't be the poor girl you dated before settling down with someone appropriate." "Is that what you think this is?" "Isn't?" Instead of answering, he pulled out his phone and showed her his calendar. "Next month I have a trade delegation to Ghana. The month after, a tech conference in Kenya. In December, my company's annual gala." He looked at her seriously. "Come with me, all of it. As my girlfriend, not my secret. People will assume I'm after your money. People will assume what they want regardless. The question is what you want." What she wanted was impossible. To love him freely without the weight of their different worlds crushing them both. But looking at his face in the fading light, she realized she was already in too deep to protect herself. "I want to try," she whispered. "Then we'll try." The next few months were like living in a dream. Kemi was true to his word about not hiding their relationship. He brought her to business dinners, introduced her to his friends, held her hand at public events despite the stares and whispered comments. When society bloggers wrote snide articles about the billionaire and his charity, "Case girlfriend," he responded by taking her to even more prominent events. "Ignore them," he said when she showed him a particularly cruel blog post calling her a gold digger. "Their opinions don't matter. Easy for you to say. You're not the one being called a desperate social climber." "You're right, I'm not. But I am being called an idiot for choosing passion over profit, and you know what, I don't care." Despite the external pressure, their relationship deepened. Kemi was patient with her insecurities, understanding about her busy schedule, and supportive of her career goals. He funded a mobile clinic program at her hospital without being asked, then acted surprised when she figured out he was behind the anonymous donation. "It's what you said you wanted to do," he said when she confronted him. "You can't solve my problems with money." "I wasn't solving your problems, I was supporting your dreams." The distinction mattered, and the fact that he understood the difference made her love him more. They were careful about physical intimacy, both aware that their relationship existed under public scrutiny. But the attraction between them was undeniable, and there were moments, late nights talking on his terrace, quiet Sunday mornings cooking breakfast together, when the tension became almost unbearable. "I've never felt this way about anyone," Kemi confessed one evening as they lay on a blanket under the stars at his beach house in Lekki. "Neither have I. I want to make love to you." The honesty in his voice made her breath catch. "I want that too. But I've never, with anyone." His eyes widened. "Are you saying you're a virgin?" She nodded, suddenly embarrassed. "I know that's probably strange to you." "It's not strange, it's just, are you sure you want your first time to be with someone in my situation? All the complications that come with me? I'm sure about you. Everything else we'll figure out." He kissed her tenderly, with none of the urgency she'd expected. "We don't have to rush anything." "I'm not rushing. I've been thinking about this for months. Amara, if we do this, there's no going back for me. You'll have all of me. I already do." They made love that night with the sound of waves crashing outside, gentle and passionate and perfect. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, Amara felt like her whole world had shifted on its axis. "I love you," she whispered against his chest. "I love you too," he said, his arms tightening around her. "More than I thought possible." What neither of them realized was that this perfect night would complicate their lives in ways they never imagined. 3 weeks later, Amara missed her period. At first, she told herself it was stress. Final year of medical school was notoriously difficult, and she'd been burning the candle at both ends, trying to balance her relationship with Kemi and her demanding rotation schedule. But when a second week passed with no sign of her cycle, panic set in. The pregnancy test she bought from a pharmacy in Surulere, far from anyone who might recognize her, showed 2 clear pink lines. Amara stared at it in her tiny bathroom, her hands shaking. This couldn't be happening. They'd been careful, mostly. There had been that one night when they'd been so lost in each other that precaution became an afterthought, but she'd convinced herself the timing was wrong, that it would be fine. Now she was pregnant, with Kemi's baby. At the worst possible time in both their lives. She was 6 months away from graduating medical school. He was in the middle of delicate merger negotiations that required his complete focus. And their relationship, while growing stronger, was still navigating the complex dynamics of their different backgrounds. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was studying to become a doctor, yet had been careless about her own reproductive health. The shame was overwhelming. For 3 days, she avoided Kemi's calls and texts, claiming she was swamped with studying. But on Thursday evening, he showed up at her apartment unannounced. "You've been avoiding me," he said when she reluctantly let him in. "I've been busy." "Amara, what's wrong? You look like you haven't slept in days." She'd practiced this conversation 12 times, but now that he was here looking at her with such concern, the words stuck in her throat. "Sit down," she said finally. "You're scaring me." "I'm pregnant." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Kemi's face went through several expressions, surprise, confusion, calculation, before settling into careful neutrality. "How long have you known?" 3 days. "And you didn't tell me?" "I needed time to process it myself." He stood up and began pacing her small living room, running his hands through his hair. Okay, this is something we can handle." "Can we, really?" "Of course we can. We'll get married immediately. I'll handle the media, make sure this is presented properly." "Kemi, stop." "What?" "You're talking about damage control, not about us having a baby." "I'm talking about protecting you, protecting our child. By rushing into marriage, What happens when the novelty wears off and you realize you're trapped with someone you never planned to build a life with? That's not how I see you. Isn't it? Be honest, if I weren't pregnant, would you be talking about marriage right now? The pause before he answered told her everything she needed to know. We love each other, he said finally. Love isn't always enough. Your board was already pressuring you to find a suitable wife. Now they'll think I deliberately got pregnant. To trap you. I don't care what they think. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And you should. Your business empire affects thousands of employees, millions of customers. You can't make decisions based purely on emotion. So what are you suggesting? I don't know. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. I need time to think about what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone is us raising this child together. Is it? Your family has expectations? Your shareholders have expectations? I'm 6 months from graduating medical school with plans to work in rural areas. How does any of that fit together? We'll make it fit. Kemi, be realistic, I'll be showing soon. The media will have a field day. Billionaire's girlfriend pregnant, speculation about gold digging, questions about timing. Is that the environment you want our child born into? So what are you saying? You want to terminate the pregnancy? The question hung heavy between them. Amara hadn't fully considered that option, but hearing him voice it made her realize she'd already made that choice instinctively. No, she said quietly. I want this baby. But I need to figure out how to do this without destroying your life. Or mine. Our baby won't destroy anything. Won't it? Think about the practical realities. I have no money, no family support system, no way to raise a child while finishing medical school. You have a business empire to run, a public image to maintain, and a family who will see me as the woman who trapped their golden boy. You're not trapping me. Tell that to the headlines. They sat in heavy silence, both grappling with the magnitude of their situation. Finally, Kemi reached for her hand. What do you need from me? Time, space to figure this out without pressure. And if I can't give you that, if every instinct I have is telling me to take care of you and our baby, then we'll probably make decisions based on fear and guilt instead of wisdom and love. He was quiet for a long moment. How much time? I don't know, a few weeks. I need to get through my current rotation, figure out my school situation, maybe talk to someone who's not emotionally invested. I'm not walking away from this. Amara, I'm not walking away from you. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me figure out how to do this right. 3 weeks later, Amara learned that doing things right was more complicated than she'd imagined. The morning sickness started with a vengeance during her pediatric surgery rotation, forcing her to excuse herself from operations multiple times. Her supervising physician, Dr. Adebola, pulled her aside with concern. Are you ill? You've seemed distracted lately. Just tired, sir. Long hours. Amara, you're one of my best students, but lately your performance has been inconsistent. If something is affecting your studies, we need to address it. She wanted to confide in him. Dr. Adebola had been a mentor throughout her medical training, but admitting her pregnancy meant facing questions about her future that she wasn't ready to answer. I'm fine, sir. Just adjusting to the rotation schedule. But she wasn't fine. The pregnancy symptoms were intensifying, making it difficult to focus during long surgeries or night shifts. Her grades, which had always been exemplary, began to slip. Worse, she was starting to show despite being only 3 months along, requiring her to buy loose scrubs and pray no one noticed. The stress was affecting her relationship with Kemi too. He respected her request for space, but she could see the strain in his carefully neutral text messages and brief phone calls. He was giving her what she'd asked for, but the distance felt unnatural after the intimacy they'd shared. Everything came to a head on a Tuesday morning when Amara fainted during a particularly difficult surgery. She woke up in the hospital bed where she'd trained for 4 years, with Dr. Adebola looking concerned and a nurse checking her vital signs. We ran some tests, Dr. Adebola said gently. Congratulations, you're about 14 weeks pregnant. The pretense was over. Amara closed her eyes, feeling relief and terror in equal measure. The father? Dr. Adebola asked carefully. It's complicated. It always is at your age. But Amara, you need to make some decisions about your future. Pregnancy and surgical training don't mix well, especially if you're dealing with this alone. I'm not exactly alone. But you're not getting proper support either, or you wouldn't have collapsed from dehydration and stress. Dr. Adebola sat down beside her bed. You're a brilliant student with a promising future, but right now you need to prioritize your health and this pregnancy. Have you considered taking a leave of absence? The suggestion hit her like a physical blow. Sir, I'm 6 months from graduation. I can't stop now. You can defer for a year. Come back after the baby is born, and you've had time to establish childcare arrangements. And lose my spot in the pediatric surgery program? Those positions are competitive. If I defer, there's no guarantee I'll get back in. There's also no guarantee you can successfully complete your training while dealing with a pregnancy, new motherhood, and whatever family complications you're facing. That evening, alone in her apartment, Amara finally called Kemi. I'm in the hospital, she said when he answered. What happened? Are you okay? Is the baby? We're both fine. I fainted during surgery today. Dehydration and stress. I'm coming to get you. Kemi, no, I'm being discharged tonight, but we need to talk. About what? About reality. My supervisor is suggesting I take a leave of absence from school. I'm showing earlier than expected, and the stress is affecting my performance. Then, take the leave. I'll support you financially. It's not about money. If I defer now, I might lose my spot in the surgical program, everything I've worked for. There will be other programs. Will there? How many opportunities do you think a single mother from a poor background gets in competitive medical specialties? You're not a single mother. You're my girlfriend carrying my child. Am I? Because for the past 3 weeks I felt very single. The accusation hung between them. She was being unfair. She'd asked for space, and he was respecting her wishes. But the isolation and fear were making her lash out. What do you want from me, Amara? I want you to understand that this isn't just about us anymore. There's a baby coming who deserves better than parents who rushed into decisions out of panic. So, what are you proposing? I don't know. The words came out as a sob. I don't know anything anymore. Then let me make this simple. I love you, I love our baby, I want us to be a family. Everything else is just logistics. Logistics matter when you have no money and 6 months left of medical school. Marry me. What? Marry me. Tonight. Tomorrow, whenever you want. Then logistics become my problem too. Kemi, I'm serious. We'll figure out the school situation together. You can take the deferment, knowing your spot will be waiting for you because I'll make sure of it. You can focus on your pregnancy and health without worrying about bills or housing or anything else. And what about love? What about marriage being a choice instead of an obligation? I choose you, Amara. Baby or no baby, I choose you. The simple declaration broke something loose in her chest. You really mean that? I've meant it for months. The baby just makes it urgent. Your family is going to hate me. My family is going to love you because I love you. And if they don't, that's their loss. The media will say I trapped you. The media will say whatever sells papers. We can't live our lives based on other people's opinions. I'm scared. So am I. But I'm more scared of facing this alone than I am of facing it together. Amara closed her eyes, weighing her options. She could struggle through the next 6 months, potentially jeopardizing her health and her baby's well-being, trying to prove she could handle everything independently. Or she could trust the man who'd shown her nothing but love and support, even when she'd pushed him away. Ask me properly, she said finally. What? If you want to marry me, ask me properly. She could hear him laugh through the phone, relief, evident in his voice. Amara Okafor, will you marry me? Yes, 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 I'll marry you. But I want a small ceremony, just us and a few witnesses. I'm not ready for a media circus. Whatever you want. And I want to finish medical school, even if it means taking the deferment. Of course. And I want our child to know both sides of their heritage, your success and my struggles. Our child will know they're loved. That's what matters most. They were married the following Saturday in a simple ceremony at Kemi's beach house, with just Dr. Adebola, Funmi, and Kemi's assistant as witnesses. Amara wore a flowing white dress that accommodated her growing belly, and Kemi couldn't stop smiling throughout the brief vows. "I love you, Mrs. Adelek," he said as they shared their first dance to the sound of waves outside. "I love you too. But I'm keeping Okafor professionally. Whatever makes you happy." The honeymoon period lasted exactly 3 days before reality intruded in the form of a society blog post titled "Billionaire's Shotgun Wedding: The Real Reason Behind Kemi Adelek's Surprise Marriage." The article was brutal, speculating about Amara's pregnancy, questioning the timeline of their relationship, and interviewing sources who claimed Kemi's family was devastated by his poor choice. It included unflattering photos of Amara from her catering job and compared her educational background unfavorably to his previous rumored girlfriends. "Ignore it," Kemi said when she showed him the article over breakfast. "Easy for you to say. Your employees are probably reading this. Your business partners, your investors. My employees know me well enough to judge me by my work, not gossip. And my business partners care about profits, not my personal life." "What about your family?" Kemi was quiet for a moment. "My uncle called yesterday. And he wants to meet you." "Oh, Amara, my family doesn't define me. I lost my parents. Young and the relatives who raised me are good people, but they don't control my decisions. But they influence your business interests. Some of them do, but not in ways that affect our marriage. I want to meet them." "Are you sure? They can be traditional in their expectations. They're going to be our child's family. I'd rather face their disapproval directly than let it fester." The meeting was arranged for the following Sunday at his uncle's estate in Ikoyi. Amara spent the week researching Yoruba customs and practicing responses to potential criticisms. She chose her outfit carefully, a modest dress that showed her intelligence and respectability while acknowledging her pregnancy. Chief Adeleke was an imposing man in his 70s, with the bearing of someone accustomed to respect and obedience. His wife was elegant and reserved, studying Amara with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The house was magnificent. Marble floors, Persian rugs, original artwork that probably cost more than most people's annual salaries. "So you're the young woman who captured our Kemi's attention," Chief Adeleke said after formal introductions. "Yes, sir. And you're carrying his child?" "Yes, sir. How convenient." The insult was delivered with polite smoothness, but Amara felt it like a slap. Kemi tensed beside her. "Uncle," he began. "No. Let her speak for herself." Chief Adeleke's gaze never left Amara's face. "Tell me, my dear, what did you study?" "In university. Medicine, sir. I'm completing my final year at the University of Lagos." "Ah, a doctor. Respectable profession. Though I suppose finishing your studies will be challenging now with a baby coming. I plan to complete my degree after taking a brief deferment. Plans change when reality sets in. Motherhood is demanding, especially for someone without family support." "She has family support," Kemi interjected. "She has me." "Kemi, you work 18-hour days building your empire. You travel constantly for business. What support can you realistically provide for a wife and infant?" It was a fair question, and Amara could see Kemi struggling with the answer. "I'll adjust my schedule," he said finally. "Will you?" The Jakarta expansion is launching next quarter. The Lagos infrastructure project needs your personal oversight. The board is expecting you to maintain the growth trajectory that's made Adeleke Enterprises so successful. Chief Adeleke's voice was kind but relentless. "Success demands sacrifice. Nephew, you can't have everything." "I can balance business and family, can you? Your father thought the same thing. He was traveling to finalize a business deal when he and your mother died in that car accident. Business demanded his presence, and family paid the price." The comment hit home. Kemi went very still, and Amara saw pain flicker across his face. "That was different," he said quietly. "Was it? Or are you repeating the same patterns that destroyed your parents' happiness? My parents were happy. Your parents were successful. There's a difference." Amara had heard enough. Chief Adeleke, with respect, Kemi and I understand the challenges we're facing, but we're not his parents and this isn't 30 years ago. Chief Adeleke raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by her directness. We know balancing career and family won't be easy, Amara continued, her voice steady despite her racing heart. But we're committed to making it work because we love each other and we want what's best for our child. Love is a luxury, my dear. Security is a necessity. Then it's fortunate that Kemi can provide both. She placed her hand protectively over her growing belly. I didn't pursue your nephew for his money. I have my own career goals and the ability to support myself. What I can't provide alone is a father for my child, and Kemi wants to be that father. And when the demands of his business pull him away, when you're alone with a crying baby while he's negotiating deals in Singapore or Dubai, then I'll handle it, the same way mothers have handled challenges for generations. But I won't make decisions based on fear of what might go wrong. Chief Adeleke studied her for a long moment, and Amara thought she saw a flicker of approval in his eyes. You have courage, he said finally. I'll give you that. She has more than courage, Kemi said, his voice filled with pride. She has integrity, intelligence, and compassion, everything I could want in a wife and mother to my children. Children? Plural? Mrs. Adeleke spoke for the first time, her voice carefully neutral. We hope so, Amara replied. Eventually. And your medical career? How do you plan to manage multiple children and a demanding profession? The same way successful women around the world manage it, with good planning, strong support systems, and the understanding that perfection isn't the goal, balance is. The conversation continued for another hour, covering everything from Amara's family background to their plans for childcare to Kemi's business succession planning. It was exhausting and often uncomfortable, but by the end, Chief Adeleke's hostility had softened into grudging respect. You're not what we expected, he told Amara as they prepared to leave. What did you expect? Someone more ambitious, more interested in the lifestyle our nephew can provide. I'm interested in the man your nephew is, not what he can buy me. That's either very naive or very wise. Time will tell which. As they drove home, Kemi was unusually quiet. That went better than I expected, Amara said finally. Did it? They basically called you a gold digger and questioned every decision we've made. They're protecting you. It's what families do. Are you defending them? I'm trying to understand them. Your uncle lost his brother in a car accident that happened because business pulled him away from family. He's terrified of watching you make the same mistakes. And my aunt, she's worried that I'll demand more time and attention than you can give while still maintaining the success that defines your family's identity. Their concerns don't matter. What matters is what we want. Their concerns matter because they love you. We don't have to agree with them, but understanding where they're coming from helps us address their fears constructively. Kemi pulled over and turned to face her. How are you so wise about this when I'm ready to cut them off completely? Because I have nothing to lose. You do. Your family, your business relationships, your social standing, all of that is tied together in ways that affect more than just us. I don't care about social standing. Maybe not, but you care about your employees and your investors and your ability to fund the charitable work you're passionate about. Those things require you to maintain certain relationships and appearances. So what are you suggesting? That we prove them wrong by being successful at both marriage and business. Show them that love actually makes you stronger, not weaker. 6 months later, their daughter Zara was born on a rainy Tuesday morning in Lagos. Amara's labor was long and difficult, complicated by high blood pressure that required an emergency cesarean section. But when they placed the tiny, perfect baby in her arms, everything else faded away. She's beautiful, Kemi whispered, tears streaming down his face as he held his daughter for the first time. She has your eyes, Amara observed, exhausted but blissful, and your stubborn chin. She's going to rule the world. God help us all. The first few months of parenthood were as challenging as Chief Adeleke had predicted. Kemi tried to reduce his travel schedule, but the Jakarta expansion hit multiple snags that required his personal attention. Amara struggled with postpartum, depression and the isolation of new motherhood, especially when Kemi was traveling. "I can't do this," she sobbed one night when Zara had been crying for hours and nothing seemed to help. Kemi was in Dubai, handling a crisis that threatened to derail a major infrastructure deal. "You can," Funmi assured her, holding the screaming baby while Amara collapsed on the couch. "Every new mother feels this way. Every new mother doesn't have a husband who's in a different time zone half the time. Every new mother doesn't have a husband who can afford to hire help." It was true. Kemi had wanted to hire a full-time nanny immediately, but Amara had resisted, feeling like accepting too much help would prove his family's point about her being unable to handle reality. Now she realized that pride was less important than sanity. The nanny, Mrs. Ogbonna, was a godsend. Experienced with newborns and patient with anxious first-time mothers, she helped establish routines that gave Amara space to recover physically and emotionally. More importantly, she supported Amara's decision to resume her medical studies when Zara was 6 months old. "You sure you're ready?" Dr. Adebola asked when Amara showed up for her first day back in clinical rotations. "I'm sure I need to finish what I started." "And the baby? She's well cared for, and her father is incredibly supportive of my career goals." It wasn't entirely true. Kemi was supportive in principle, but the practical realities of balancing a medical career with motherhood and his demanding schedule created constant tension. They argued about missed dinners, cancelled plans, and the exhaustion that made them both short-tempered. "I feel like I never see you anymore," Kemi complained. One evening when Amara came home from a 36-hour shift to find him feeding Zara her bedtime bottle. "You were in South Africa for a week. I was here studying and taking care of our daughter. I was working to provide for our family. So was I." "That's different." "How?" "Because you don't have to work. You're choosing to work when our daughter needs her mother." The accusation hung between them like a poison cloud. Amara set down her medical bag very carefully. "Are you suggesting I'm neglecting our child?" "I'm suggesting that maybe you should consider what's most important right now. What's most important is raising a daughter who sees that women can be both mothers and professionals. What's most important is showing her that marriage is a partnership where both people pursue their dreams. What's most important is being present for the people who need you." "Like you're present?" "Like you were present when she had her first fever, and I was alone with her at the hospital because you were in a board meeting that couldn't be rescheduled." They were both exhausted, both stressed, both feeling like they were failing at the impossible task of balancing everything. The fight escalated until they were shouting, waking Zara, who began crying in her crib. "This isn't working," Amara said finally, picking up their daughter and trying to soothe her. "What isn't working? Us, this marriage, pretending we can have everything without sacrificing anything. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe your uncle was right. Maybe love isn't enough when two people want incompatible things." The words were out before she could stop them, and she saw Kemi flinch as if she'd hit him. "Do you want a divorce?" he asked quietly. "I want us to be honest about what we can realistically handle." "That sounds like yes." "It sounds like I don't know how to be the wife you need, and the doctor I want to be, and the mother Zara deserves all at the same time." Kemi sat down heavily on their bed, suddenly looking older than his 33 years. "I don't want a divorce," he said finally. "Neither do I. But I don't want to spend the next 20 years fighting about priorities and making each other miserable." "So what do we do?" "I don't know." They separated temporarily, with Amara and Zara moving back to her old apartment while they figured out their next steps. The arrangement was supposed to give them space to think clearly, but instead it made everything worse. Zara cried constantly, disrupted by the change in routine. Amara struggled to manage her studies and full-time childcare without help. Kemi threw himself into work with even more intensity, as if staying busy could numb the pain of his failing marriage. The tabloids had a field day. "Billionaire's marriage in crisis" screamed across society blogs, with unnamed sources speculating about infidelity, money disputes, and Amara's alleged inability to handle the pressure of being married to someone of Kemi's stature. "Ignore them," Dr. Adebola advised when he found Amara crying over her medical textbooks in the hospital library. Hard to ignore when they're everywhere. What matters is what you and your husband decide, not what strangers write for entertainment. What if they're right? What if I really can't handle this life? Can handle what? Being married to someone you love? Raising a beautiful daughter? Completing your medical degree despite incredible obstacles? Dr. Adebola sat down across from her. Amara, you're trying to do in 2 years what most people spread across a decade. Marriage, motherhood, medical school. Each one is challenging enough alone. So I should quit something. You should be realistic about timing. Maybe you don't have to choose between being a wife, mother, and doctor. Maybe you just need to sequence things differently. Meaning, finish medical school, get established in your career, then focus on expanding your family or taking on additional responsibilities, or take a longer break now and return to medicine. When Zara is older, there's no rule that says you have to do everything simultaneously. The advice was sensible, but it didn't address the core issue. She and Kemi had different visions of what their marriage should look like. 2 weeks into their separation, Kemi showed up at her apartment at midnight. "I've been thinking," he said when she reluctantly let him in. "About what?" "About what you said, about being honest about what we can handle. And you're right. I can't be the husband you deserve while maintaining the level of business involvement I've had. Something has to change. Kemi, I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations, promoting my CFO to CEO and moving myself to executive chairman. Less travel, more strategic oversight, better work-life balance." Amara stared at him. "You can't do that. Your company is your life's work. My family is my life's work. The company is just how I pay for it. Your board will never approve that kind of transition. They will if I present it as succession planning. I'm 33. Amara, I can't run operations forever. Better to transition gradually while I'm young enough to provide guidance than wait until I'm forced out by age or health issues. What about the Jakarta expansion, the infrastructure projects? I'll oversee them as chairman. But I won't be personally managing every crisis or traveling to every negotiation. And if the company suffers, then we'll adjust. But I'd rather have a slightly less successful business and a successful marriage than the other way around." The gesture was enormous, but Amara knew it wasn't enough by itself. "What about us?" she asked. "The fighting, the resentment, the feeling like we want different things?" "We want the same things: a happy marriage, healthy children, meaningful work. We just disagree about timing and priorities. So how do we fix that? By talking instead of assuming, by supporting each other's goals instead of competing with them, by remembering that we're on the same team." It sounds simple when you say it like that. The simple things are usually the hardest. They talked until dawn, mapping out a realistic plan for balancing their careers and family. Kemi would transition to his new role gradually over 6 months. Amara would finish medical school but defer her residency for 2 years, using that time to establish a solid foundation for their marriage and give Zara stability. They would hire additional help, not because Amara couldn't handle things alone, but because having support would allow them to focus on each other instead of just surviving each day. "Are you sure about the business changes?" Amara asked, as they watched the sunrise over the Lagos skyline. "I'm sure about us," Kemi replied. "Everything else is negotiable." The reconciliation wasn't instant or easy. They had to rebuild trust, re-establish intimacy, and learn new ways of communicating about stress and priorities. Counseling helped, though Kemi initially resisted the idea of discussing private matters with a stranger. "Marriage counseling is for people who are failing," he argued. "We are failing," Amara pointed out. "We separated after less than 2 years of marriage. That's pretty much the definition of failing. We're not failing. We hit a rough patch." "Kemi," we both said, "things we didn't mean and made decisions based on anger instead of love. We need help learning how to do this better." Dr. Fashola, their counselor, helped them identify patterns that had contributed to their problems. Kemi's tendency to solve emotional issues with money or grand gestures instead of time and attention, Amara's habit of withdrawing and making unilateral decisions when she felt overwhelmed, their mutual tendency to keep score about sacrifices and contributions instead of viewing their marriage as a true partnership. "You're both trying to prove you deserve each other," Dr. Fashola observed during one session, "but you already chose each other. The question now is whether you can build a life together that honors both of your values and ambitions." "How do we do that when our ambitions sometimes conflict?" Amara asked. "By remembering that conflict isn't the same as incompatibility. Conflict means you both care deeply about things that matter. Incompatibility means you want fundamentally different lives. And which are we? And which are we?" As they stood together, surrounded by their children and the life they'd built through love, determination, and mutual support, Amara realized that their story had never really been about a virgin accidentally getting pregnant by a billionaire. It had been about two people who chose each other repeatedly, despite obstacles and setbacks and moments of doubt. Their love story wasn't perfect, but it was real, and in the end, that made all the difference. Years later, when Zara asked about how her parents met, Amara would tell her the whole truth, about the charity gala, the spilled champagne, the unexpected pregnancy, and the challenges that followed. But she would emphasize that the most important part wasn't how their story began, but how they chose to write each chapter together. "Love isn't about finding someone perfect," she would tell her daughter. "It's about finding someone worth fighting for, worth growing with, worth building a life alongside. Your father and I didn't have an easy beginning, but we had something better. We had commitment to becoming the people each other needed." And as their foundation continued expanding its reach, their children grew into confident and compassionate young people, and their marriage deepened into something unshakable. Amara knew that sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones that begin with the most unexpected complications. Because those complications teach you from the very beginning that love without effort is just attraction, that marriage without dedication is just a ceremony, and that families without commitment are just people who happen to live in the same house. Their story had begun with an accident, but it had become a choice. Every single day it remained a choice, and that, Amara realized, was the most beautiful thing of all.